Good evening, welcome to Cardiff City TV. Well, shooting opportunity. Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, it's that goal!
Hello again, welcome to Cardiff City TV with myself, Ashley James, and alongside me, John Donovan. This afternoon's game, an away game at Ewood Park, the home of Blackburn Rovers, a team we suspected would be there and thereabouts around the playoff places at the moment, and that's exactly how it's proven to be. Cardiff, on the other hand, are falling a little short at present, mid-table, when many were hoping that we'd be up and around where Tony Mowbray's men find themselves at the moment. And that's largely, John, because of a little indifferent patch of form that the Bluebirds find themselves at the moment. Results aren't there, and performances have also been a little bit lacking, if we're going to be honest.
Completely correct, Ash. And I think you have to be honest. I think, for credibility's sake, we have to reflect truly what we're seeing. And what I would always say, particularly under Mick McCarthy, no lack of effort or endeavour or work rate or chasing or harrying. There's a desire to work for the shirt, work for the cause, but quality and creative spark have been lacking. I actually thought the first defeat, Bristol City, there were moments of that game where we played reasonably well, and I thought there was some decent football. But if we're honest, we probably escaped with the 2-1 win at Nottingham Forest, thanks to moments of brilliance from Ruben Colwell. We weren't great for around about an hour of that. And certainly then following that, Coventry was immensely disappointing. We maybe put that down as fatigue. But then, Bournemouth, and you never want to play Bournemouth because they are one of the quality sides in this division, but they matched us physically, so we didn't have any advantage there. So when the football took over, they were head and shoulders above us, and I still feel if we were probably playing now, we wouldn't have scored. Again, no criticism of the endeavour or the commitment of these players, but we need something today, Ash. First and foremost, we need to stop the rot, but I just think we need something to give everybody around the club a little bit of a lift again.
Maybe that's what Mick McCarthy's looked for if you look at the starting lineup this afternoon. He's gone with Ruben Colwell from the start this afternoon for that little injection of a spark, as you're saying. Look, he's a young man, still finding his feet in the professional game, let alone at the championship level. So we've seen some indifferent performances for him, but we've also obviously seen that quality. So he comes in from the start this afternoon. Perry and G comes back in on the right-hand side. We think that's going to be a to-in and throw-in with Tom Sang all season long, and there's a man up top in Kiefer Moore that just really needs a goal, doesn't he?
He does, but he needs service to get a goal. And again, I was talking to you off camera, he worked his heart out last week against Bournemouth, but he worked his heart out without possession of the ball. He was chasing, he was trying to close down centre halves. There wasn't a lot that came his way constructively. Certainly there wasn't quality into the box for him to attack. So I've seen it said this week, and you're absolutely right, Kiefer Moore needs a goal, James Collins needs a goal. Yes, James Collins did have that chance at Coventry when quality did come into the box from Perry NG, I think it was. But those chances have been few and far between. So, yes, they need goals, but they need the players around them to create those chances by either quality into the box, taking runners away, those third-man runs, that sort of thing. And we're just not seeing a lot of that. Just to go back to your point on Colwell, why I want to see him playing more often than not, and he is up and down at the moment, and I've seen some good articles this week about maybe an impact role from the substitutes bench, but I just look at that Cardiff City team and I wonder how many players can get on the half turn and how many players can move the ball forward quickly but constructively. And Ruben Colwell is still very raw, but I think he's one of those few in the Cardiff City squad that can actually manipulate the ball in an attacking sense, move the ball a little bit quicker, maybe get away from a fullback, not with speed, but with a little bit of guile and what have you. So when you're scratching around for creativity, Ruben Colwell might be the answer.
Oh, we've seen evidence of it with that extraordinary goal at the City ground, haven't we? Now, in terms of the bench, then, the headline news on the bench, still no Joe Rawls, unfortunately. We're still waiting for his return, but there is a place for Ryan Giles this afternoon, and when we're talking about needing that spark of creativity, it's not been overlooked the fact that obviously the results have started to wane a little without Ryan Giles' inclusion in the matchday squad. Now, before we get any further, it would be remiss of us not to touch on the sad passing this morning of former Cardiff manager Len Ashurst. Not to age you, John, you're slightly older than me, so you have a lot more contextual connection with Len. He's obviously a man who meant a lot to every football club he represented, seemingly, and no different to Cardiff City.
Absolutely not, and it's only recently that Len Ashurst trophies in Canton has gone. I still used to, when I used to run junior teams, always bought my trophies there because I loved going into the Len Ashurst shop and asking about him and how he was and so on and so forth. You know, I come from a Cardiff City family, and Len Ashurst had 2 spells at Cardiff City, and my 2 elder brothers lived through the first spell, and he was a hero. I lived through his second spell when he came in to replace Frank Burrows, and it didn't quite have the same impact, but he was still a legend at Cardiff City, as he was at Newport County. You know, he was always affectionately known for his eyebrows and so forth. But he actually was quite a pioneer in football as well, and he took a Cardiff City team, particularly that first time around, that didn't have a lot of money to spend, and him and Frank Burrows, I think, are 2 excellent managers, you know, in my lifetime, where football was a different game. Cardiff City were in the doldrums, there wasn't a lot of money to spend, and he identified players, he found players, and he got Cardiff City consistently winning. You know, he served Sunderland well also, but I know even though he was back in the northeast, he constantly followed Cardiff City and had a huge affection for Cardiff City, and Cardiff City rightly have a huge affection for him. So very sad news this morning, but a man that from my infant times following football, Len Ashurst is someone who will always have a place in my heart.
We always send our sympathies and deepest condolences to the family of former Cardiff City manager Len Ashurst, who sadly passed away today. We're going to continue our build-up the other side of this being a word from our current manager, Mick McCarthy.
Well, a tough one again. There's no easy ones in the Championship, and Tony Mowbray's got a good side there. They play good football. He manages to get some good loans from clubs, and he always does well with them. I mean, they had a good season last season. It was they had the 1 goal scorer, Armstrong. Having lost him, that's made it lose so many goals from one player. But I guess if you've got a team that shares it around, that's better still. And he seems to have, there's players. Diaz has come to it. Brereton, Diaz now. He's got a really good squad that they all look like they know what they're doing. They're good. And he's changed the shape of his team. We've looked at him. They've had 4-3-3, 4-4-2. So be interesting to see who he plays against us. We started reasonably well, I thought, and then got 3 defeats in 4. That can't be described as well, that's for sure, despite they were all narrow defeats. You know, we have to get back now. We have to stop getting beaten, first and foremost, but we need to get a win under our belts. Certainly having lost Joe Rawls and of course we lost Gilo, which was, a real... They both were playing well, and I'm not suggesting anybody who's come in has done anything different, but, we were on a bit of a roll when we got the lads in the team. And I do think that Keith has been affected by, COVID being off. It's strange when he played his 18 months non-stop or 2 years non-stop, it was fine. And then as soon as he went away with Wales, and then he got COVID, and then he was a close contact and he couldn't train again. I do think that's affected him. We've not really been as efficient as we could be.
The gaffer Mick McCarthy there, talking or reflecting really on that defeat to Bournemouth a week ago, and obviously the squad looking to put it right this afternoon. It's going to be a difficult challenge though. We will come on and talk about Tony Mowbray, and maybe I think he's a bit of a lightning rod for expectation and the status of a manager in the modern football game, I think, and the fandom surrounding that. So I want to come on to talk about Tony Mowbray in a bit. But in terms of Blackburn, for me, they're performing pretty much as expected, which is a team who have been on the cusp of the playoffs. They have been for several seasons, and when we come on to talk about Tony Mowbray, the fact of the matter is they've fallen away in the last 2 seasons, but they look pretty strong as ever this season.
They do. They lost Alan Armstrong, and I even with him, and I thought he was a fantastic goal scorer and finisher. I wondered whether they had enough goals in the team to quite get to the playoff positions, because it dropped away very quickly after his goals, and they're riding the crest of a wave with Brereton Diaz at the moment. We know Sam Gallagher comes back in today, and he's someone that that traditional ploy we've seen in recent years, Ash, of going on to one of the wide full backs to target them from the diagonal balls, whether we'll see that today. But I just wonder whether they'll score enough goals, but actually in terms of structure, and particularly the way they play football, and particularly the way they play counter-attacking football. I think they're very quick on the counter-attack, but constructive, not just back to front very quickly, but constructive on the counter-attack. I think I think you're right, about there or thereabouts as where you'd expect. I've got huge respect for Tony Mowbray. I know we'll come on to him in a moment. He's just when he's gravitated to the big job in his career, sometimes it's gone wrong for him, but more often than not, he's steadied a club, he's improved their football, he's improved the feeder side into it, the youngsters coming through. So huge respect for him and what Blackburn Rovers are doing so far this season.
And in terms of the team today, it's a pretty settled lineup now. Thomas Kaminski starts in goals, actually got their Player of the Year award last year, despite the remarkable exploits of Adam Armstrong on the goal front. Nyombe, Lenihan, Ayala, Pickering as a back line. There's a bit of depth there as well. No Joel Rankin Costello, who's been impressive as a youngster. Teo Adoon signed from Lincoln, and he's currently battling with Harry Pickering in that back line. And then you talk about that pathway that Cardiff are trying to open up from midfield, that midfield trio of Travis, Buckley and then Rothwell, who I know came through at United and they bought. But that's a really dynamic midfield three, got legs in there, players who are happy to sit but happy to break forward as well. And I don't think you see that a lot from modern midfielders. Modern midfielders get pigeonholed, from a young age of, are you going to protect your back four? Are you going to have the legs to go and break and join up with the attacking line? Well, seemingly the three that start today can all do a bit of both. Certainly Buckley and Travis.
And this is what I mean about counter-attacking football. And I noticed what Tony Mowbray said in his press conference was, we expect a physical battle. That's just your standard line now for any manager who's doing a press conference about playing Cardiff City. But what I liked, he said about, we need to win second ball, because if we win the second ball, it allows us to break quickly. And testament to your point is because those midfielders can do a bit of both. They can get forward very quickly. Also Dolan as well, who I think plays his 50th time in the matchday squad, or 50th appearance today. I know Tony Mowbray was waxing lyrical about him in the week. The enthusiasm that he brings, the press without the ball, his creativity and what have you. So Cardiff City, we've seen Cardiff in recent weeks, Ash, concede a lot of similar goals, perhaps even losing the ball when we're in possession, exploited more commonly than not through the middle of the pitch, on the transition, on the quick counter-attack, and we find ourselves conceding a goal. Well, this Blackburn team is a team that can very much do that to Cardiff City because of the speed, energy, mobility in that midfield unit and what's in front of them as well. So this team today pose a huge threat to Cardiff City.
Let's have a quick word about Tony Mowbray then. Why isn't he loved more at Blackburn? Because seemingly, and we'll caveat this by saying that we as Cardiff fans are the first to strike this back at other fans of other clubs who look from the outside in and go in, well, hang on, you seem to be doing all right. Why don't you like your manager more? But Tony Mowbray seems to be doing year on year a really, really good job at Blackburn.
I don't know whether it's because perhaps he plays the politics up there, and there are issues surrounding ownership of the club that have been going on for about a decade now. You'd imagine they might have dropped away somewhat, but again, that's not football. So he seems to toe the party line and do a good job up there. Perhaps that's why he gets criticised. But the Celtic job was his dream job. It didn't go well for him, and I think that burned him and hurt him for a little while. I think the criticism he got in the press, maybe he's a little bit more circumspect now, a little bit more protective. So he doesn't come across as a particularly vibrant character. But the way his teams play football, the way they're set up, the way he brings through youth. I remember him. You mentioned my age earlier when he was just finishing at Ipswich and got into the coaching side there, I think, and started bringing players through. Everyone who you read about in the game who's played for him, respects him, how he communicates, how open and honest he is with his players, and frankly, yeah, I think he's done a fantastic job at Blackburn.
Currently, Blackburn sit sixth in the table. Let's have a little discussion then about the Championship table, because we've seen a bit of to and fro in. Fulham sat in fourth place, have lost 2 games in quick succession that we wouldn't have expected them to. But for the most part, this Championship table now does seem to be settling down somewhat. We've got West Brom coming here, who won last night, will be top of the league. Coventry continue their fine form. And then you've got a couple of teams, perhaps, in Reading, who've just beaten Middlesbrough ahead of kick-off here this afternoon, and Huddersfield, who are doing better than expected.
Yes.
And teams further down the division, Middlesbrough and Sheffield United, certainly, who are not reaching the expected level of performance at the moment. Are Cardiff, are we a little worried at the moment that we're going to get dragged into that second group a little?
Well, I said a couple of things to you off camera, Ash. First of all, to take the table settling down, and what I was so impressed with Bournemouth last week, not just their footballing ability, but when Cardiff tried to mix it, Bournemouth mixed it with us. I thought Gary Cahill's an experienced head was fantastic at the back. So you look at West Brom, you look at Bournemouth, I think they'll be the 2 teams that go away, and will go away from Fulham as well, because I think they can do both sides of the game that perhaps you want in the Championship. They can play the lovely football, and Fulham can certainly play the lovely football, but I would prefer that Bournemouth and West Brom team in terms of being able to mix it, and when games, in the bleak midwinter turn into physical battles, they can do that as well. I think Michael O'Neill's doing a great job at Stoke, just to throw that in. But coming back to Cardiff, Ash, I said to you on the first day of the season, I had them pegged somewhere between 6th and 10th. The first few weeks of the season gave me optimism it would be closer to 6th. The last couple of weeks, closer to 10th. But if we managed to pick up a win today, we would leapfrog Blackburn, and there's a good chance we'd finish the day in the playoff places. So, yes, that's where I go back to my point I started with. Important today, minimum is to stop the rot. Minimum is to not get beat. But let's go for a little bit more than that, and let's give everybody around the club, most importantly the fans, a little bit of a lift.
I seem to say this every week, certainly with away games, because picking up wins in the Championship away from home is so difficult, even in the seasons where we've been promoted. You can never take away wins for granted. Cardiff going to Ewood Park this afternoon for a 3 o'clock kickoff off the back of 5 consecutive draws between the two teams on that ground. We will have live coverage and live commentary with myself and John from Ewood Park coming up in a few minutes' time. First, let's hear from Tom Sang.
Nothing's changed really. Every single week, that it doesn't matter whether we're on a winning run or a bad couple of games, but every day in training is always really lively and with a focus on the game that's next coming up. I feel like with the majority of games, you've got to go in with the same mindset of it's going to be a tough game. The Championship's it's a really good league and there's a lot of good players. So as long as we focus on our game plan and we perform as best as we can, then I'm sure the results will come. I feel like where I'm playing now for Cardiff is, I found it towards the end of my loan, I started playing a couple of games there, which I really enjoyed, and I feel like it suited me much more to maybe playing where I was in the number 10 position. And also it just helped me adapt to the men's game, at the level and the speed of it, so that when I came back I was much better prepared and suited for what was to come. The coaches know that I've previously played there, obviously, but from my side, I feel like development-wise now, I feel like it is best to just focus on one position, and you never know what is to come. But I really enjoy where I am now, and I feel like attributes I have really suit to where I'm playing at the minute. So I feel like I just want to stick to it and just keep going down the path I'm on. Yeah, it's class really. So because when I first came, I think it was 2.5 years ago now. I'd say first 6 months and never trained with the first team once. Or I'd maybe go up for 10 minutes for a bit of shape and then come back with the 23s. And then, so at that time, you're thinking, is there a pathway? But then as soon as that happened, then there was the next one, and then another one. So now there's young lads training really regularly. So, and even getting game time, like Sam Bowen, Kieran Evans as well, and all them lads. So it's good to see. And I think it's really encouraging for lads in the 23s now to see that it can happen.
Top 5 in association with the Big Yellow Self-Storage Company.
Jennison puts Kenny Miller through one-on-one with Bud. Miller scores! That's all about taking your chances there, Mark. We said Blackburn have looked quicker to the loose ball in the midfield here in the opening stages. They weren't then.
Left footed high across goal. Header in, yes, the goal! And it's Sean Morrison who's got it.
Thoroughly deserved. Peter Whittingham, that's assist number 9 of the season, by the way. In addition to his 5 goals, he's come up trumps again. And it's Sean Morrison who's risen, and it's his 5th goal of the season.
Whittingham's able to gather and Zola on the halfway line, assess what's ahead of him. De Boer picks up Jazz Richards, now here's Pilot. Right-footed first time cross, Zohar, goal! And it's a lovely finish on the volley for Kenneth Zohar with his left foot, his 7th of the season. This man just keeps getting better.
He's on absolute fire, Mark. What a finish that is from Ken. Can't take anything away from Hoyler. What a ball. Absolutely incredible ball in the box. The horse started that. He's got the ball out wide off the right, and he's met it superbly. City lead. Brilliant finish, Kenneth Zohar. Right in Middlesbrough. And Mason, he's in here. Can he finish it off? Yes, he can. He stretches Cardiff's lead in the match and extends their lead at the top of the Ed Power Championship. It's so simple, it's unbelievable.
Pilot. It's the ball back to Sanderson. Down from Brianza. Pilot, former Blackburn player, of course. Folks goes for goal. Oh, and he scores out of nothing. What a lovely finish from Will Folks with the outside of his right foot. It's a wonderful effort. I think it surprised everybody, including us. Out of nothing, it was a great forward run from Folks. Took it first time the outside of his right foot. Lovely finish in off the upright.
In another busy week for Cardiff City, the women's team travelled to TNS on Sunday the 19th of September, running out 3-0 victors thanks to goals from Danielle Broadhurst, Catherine Walsh and Zoe Atkins. Next up, on Sunday the 26th of September, Swansea City, live on Cardiff City TV. The under-23s were also in action again this week, maintaining a 100% start to the season on Tuesday the 21st of September, thanks to a 2-0 victory over Sheffield United at the Cardiff City Stadium. Strikes from Cham Kazimba and Kieran Evans saw the Bluebirds' impressive start to the season continue. Next up, Millwall on Monday the 27th of September. The under-18s had a PDL Cup fixture versus Watford called off on Saturday the 18th of September, but looked to kick on again versus Colchester on Saturday the 25th.
Good evening, welcome to Cardiff City TV. Roll, shooting opportunity. Oh, it's brilliant. Morrison, goal! Good afternoon, welcome to Ewood Park and welcome to live coverage of the Bluebirds and Blackburn Rovers on Cardiff City TV with myself, Ashton Jameson, alongside me, John Donovan. Thank you if you just joined us for pre-match coverage. We are anticipating a cagey type affair again, John. They always tend to be here at Ewood Park. 5 straight draws between the two sides, and if you look at the league table and the relevant start to the season that both teams have, I was going to say enjoyed, but rather endured perhaps, is in certain circles, suggests that there's not going to be too much between the two sides this afternoon again.
No, good afternoon again, Ash. Good afternoon to everyone tuning in. I am anticipating a cagey affair. I think in Mick McCarthy's mindset, the first priority will be not to be beaten, to stop the rot, to come away with something away from home in a difficult environment. So I imagine Cardiff will play with numbers behind the ball. Perhaps Kiefer Moore will be a little isolated. We'll look to him to provide a platform. Blackburn, yes, they are undefeated in the last 4 or 5 games, but most of those have been draws. Brereton Diaz is the feel-good story for them as we see him on screen at the moment, but I don't actually think they pose a huge amount of goal threat, although they do play good, quick, counter-attacking football. We talked about the dynamic nature of their midfield, so that's an area they could have perhaps an advantage over Ash. So it'd be interesting to see how the first half plays out. I imagine it'll be tight, I imagine it'll be cagey, maybe it'll open up after the break.
That's the Blackburn team that Tony Murray's gone with this afternoon. I don't think it's going to look like that. I think it will be a front three of Brereton Diaz, the youngster Tyrese Dolan, who's been a revelation in his season and a bit in the Championship so far, and Sam Gallagher returns to fitness and returns to the team. It'll be interesting to see what alignment we see from Gallagher and Brereton Diaz, both capable of playing through the middle, both capable of playing off the left-hand side also. That's your Cardiff team, that's Moore in keeping. I think what we're going to see Kiefer Moore through the middle, joined by Leandro Bacuna and Ruben Colwell. I hope to see them with a bit more close support than that, than sat into a midfield 4 as well. Need to get the wing backs forward. Those wing backs this afternoon are the returning Joe Bagan and Perry and G, after they both sat out from the start last week's defeat at Bournemouth. The back 3 remains in situ. The midfield duo does as well, because there's still no room for Joe Rolls quite yet, returning from that groin injury. We have our fingers crossed for Tuesday night on the visit of West Bromwich Albion. There is a place on the bench though for Ryan Giles, who's missed the last 3 games with us. It's a busier looking Ewood Park than we've been used to, certainly for the last 18 months obviously, but maybe for the last 5 or 6 years really, because we have attended games, you and I, John, at Ewood Park, where it's been like a ghost town.
It has indeed, and yes, just before we break for the moment's pause, it does feel like Blackburn are riding a feel-good factor at the moment, and maybe the fans are going with them, so Cardiff might need to weather a storm the first 10 to 15 minutes.
This immense applause for Jimmy Greaves, who passed away last Sunday morning, a legend of English football, both at the club level and at international level. And again, it would be remiss of us also here on Cardiff City TV not to tip our hat and pay our condolences to former manager Len Ashurst, who sadly passed away this morning.
Yeah, so I said in the pre-match show, Ash, that Len Ashurst, I saw his second spell for Cardiff, my brothers. Very much enjoyed his first spell of Cardiff City manager, and will be sorely missed, will Len Ashurst, a great servant to every club he was at, and adored Cardiff, and still had a business in Cardiff until recently. So thoughts go out to the Ashurst family. And Jimmy Greaves, again, just to age me, there was life before the Premiership, Ash. Many a Saturday morning I enjoyed watching the St and Greasy show. I'm not old enough to have seen Jimmy Greaves play, but I did enjoy